Have you ever dealt with truly extreme office politics? Or maybe watched someone execute just an absolute masterclass in weaponized malicious compliance? Well, welcome to This Explainer, where we are doing a strategic analysis of a fascinating piece of journalism that takes that entire concept to the absolute extreme. On the surface, Acqua Non Grata is just a 26-week travel column about mineral water. But if you read between the lines, it is secretly documenting this high-stakes, globe-trotting psychological war between an aristocratic sommelier and his incredibly ruthless CEO. The level of petty brilliance here is honestly off the charts, so let's unpack exactly what happened. Just to give you a taste of what we are dealing with right out of the gate, ask yourself this. How exactly does a world-class sommelier end up standing in a freezing Arctic airport, watching a Norwegian customs officer confiscate a €180 bottle of Chateau Lynch Bages that he had carefully wrapped in his own thermal underwear? And more importantly, why did he smuggle it there in the first place, just to spite his boss? Well, let's break down exactly how this hilarious rivalry escalated. Section 1. The sommelier's punishment. Okay, the crucial point here is really understanding the premise. Our protagonist is Amédée Comte de la Gabelle. He's a sommelier with 8 generations of aristocratic breeding, but he just lost the World Sommelier Championship to Amadeus Graf von Adler, a corporate CEO who practically bought his victory. The terms of his defeat: he gets to keep his title, sure, but as this completely humiliating punishment, von Adler forces him to write a weekly column about peasant hydration. Seriously. Mineral water, for 26 grueling weeks. So the core dynamic this sets up is just incredible, because Amédée absolutely refuses to just write about water. Instead, he constantly invents these incredibly absurd, hyper-intellectual loopholes to justify charging expensive wine excursions to the company. He'll claim very defensively that he's doing legitimate geological terroir research, but in reality, his columns are essentially 75% wine appreciation thinly disguised as geology. And von Adler? Oh, he is tracking every single move. Moving on to Section 2, loopholes and fine wine. In the early weeks of this corporate chess match, Amédée is entirely focused on exploiting his hydration assignments for these luxurious wine-soaked detours, basically testing exactly how far he can push von Adler's expense account. Take week 2, for example. Von Adler sends Amédée to Fiji. Now, it's a grueling 22-hour flight, and obviously there's no wine region within 1,000 miles of there, but Amédée refuses to be beaten. He sneaks off to attend a traditional Fijian kava ceremony and casually expenses the entire thing. His defiant justification to his boss? Just a single glorious sentence: the kava ceremony was research. And this right here brilliantly illustrates the dynamic between them. Because von Adler doesn't argue, he doesn't complain, his deadpan reply is immediate. I know. That's why I approved it. Von Adler is fully, completely aware of the game. He's not just some blind corporate wallet. He is playing along, letting Amédée think he's winning, while slowly setting the stage for something much bigger. Honestly, Amédée's excuses are a total masterclass in absurdity. In Germany, he visits the volcanic Gerolsteiner Springs, only to detour and expense Riesling under the guise of a comparative mineral analysis. But his most brilliant manipulation, that happens in Italy for San Pellegrino. To justify expensing a €620 Franciacorta tasting, he constructs this incredibly dense, completely over-the-top historical narrative around Renaissance hydraulic engineering. He focuses specifically on Leonardo da Vinci's 1509 notebooks. Amédée essentially frames this as a historical story, detailing da Vinci's specific influence on spring mechanics. He explains da Vinci's pressure theories using simple mechanical comparisons, arguing that the Earth's internal heat acts exactly like a giant boiler, creating subterranean pressure that functions like a massive mechanical pump, pushing carbonated water up through porous rock. He even lists out specific bullet points on da Vinci's fluid dynamic observations, noting things like vortex formations and capillary action in limestone. And the wildest part, he directly compares da Vinci's 500-year-old hand-drawn cross-sections of these underground aquifers with the multi-stage reverse osmosis filtration systems used in present-day industrial water plants. It's a genuinely masterful history of aqueducts and fluid dynamics, and he uses the entire thing just to buy wine. Oh, and for Vichy, he claims the basalt soil composition practically requires him to drink Côte d'Auvergne wine. Just masterful manipulation. Which brings us to Section 3, weaponized geography. Because listen, von Adler isn't just going to sit back and fund Amédée's European wine tours forever. No, he escalates the war by using the actual globe itself to inflict very specific physical suffering on our aristocratic sommeliers. Von Adler starts specifically targeting what Amédée dramatically refers to as his constitutional weaknesses. Amédée complains of altitude sickness at a mere 600 meters in Germany. So what does von Adler do? Sends him straight to the Bergamo Alps. Bam! He sends him on a negative 14 degrees Celsius Norwegian ice fishing trip where the guy practically gets frostbite. He forces him to take humiliating surfing lessons in Hawaii, which naturally results in a viral video with 47,000 views. At one point, Amédée even gets lost in an Italian forest and literally has to be rescued by a truffle dog. Every single itinerary is a precision-guided strike against his dignity. This creates a brutal ping-pong effect. Von Adler swings Amédée from the heavy tropical humidity of Fiji in week 2 straight to the thin altitude of Germany, and then directly into the freezing Arctic ice of Norway. But then, very suspiciously, he sends him to comfortable, warm French thermal baths in Vichy. Von Adler is completely toying with Amédée's expectations, giving him a luxurious break for no other reason than to make the next punishment feel that much worse. It is literal psychological warfare. Section 4. The escalation of sabotage. Because this passive-aggressive battle, it eventually turns into active, corporate, financial, and deeply personal sabotage. The real turning point happens in Scotland. Amédée tries to expense a 340-pound whiskey distillery tour, boldly claiming that distillation requires water source analysis. But von Adler finally draws a hard line. He rejects it personally with a simple, devastating note. Whiskey is fermented grain, not geological water. This triggers a formal audit, complete with forensic accountants, inflicting genuine financial pain on Amédée for the very first time. The grace period is officially over. And then we get the ultimate power move. Amédée tries to rebel by smuggling a €280 bottle of Polyac to Wales, a place famously devoid of wine regions. But von Adler tips off customs with Amédée's exact flight details. The wine gets confiscated. And the absolute kicker? Von Adler somehow magically acquires that exact confiscated bottle, drinks it himself, and emails Amédée a photo of the glass with the caption, "Excellent choice." I mean, it is just a flawless execution of sabotage. So what are we supposed to take away from this escalating torture? Well, it leads us to a really profound question. Halfway through this 26-week punishment, did Amédée actually start caring about the water? Section 5. The accidental hydrologist. And it turns out, yes, he did. Through sheer exposure and the raw necessity of writing 26 unique columns, Amédée experiences some incredibly surprising character growth. He finds himself genuinely fascinated by Victorian spa culture in England, Viking water mythology in Denmark, and all that fluid dynamics and Renaissance engineering in Italy we talked about earlier. He's literally learning despite himself. Take episode 16 in Seoul, Italy. Von Adler sends him straight to a 3,000-meter Alpine source. Remember Amédée's so-called constitutional weakness to altitude? Yeah, he suffers spectacularly from oxygen deprivation and vertigo. But instead of complaining, he produces this brilliant, deeply researched, completely wine-free column on Alpine water mythology and glacial hydrology. The sheer excellence of the work just cannot be denied. Which leads to this genuinely shocking moment in week 24. For the first time in their entire relationship, von Adler sends an unambiguous compliment. This is good work. Genuinely. Amédée is so thrown off, he doesn't even know how to respond and stays dead silent for 2 days. The entire dynamic of their relationship has shifted from captor and captive to something resembling mutual respect. Section 6. An ambiguous truce. Let's look at how this exhausting 26-week battle of wits actually culminates. The transformation is honestly stunning. Back in week 1, Amédée absolutely refused to even taste the avian water he was assigned to cover. He acted with sheer aristocratic disdain. But flash forward to week 26, back at a glacial source in Norway, he writes a masterful, highly poetic column on pristine aquifers. There are 0 wine tangents, none. He doesn't want any distractions from the hydrology itself. His devotion to the subject is completely absolute. Which brings us to the deadpan email exchange at 2 a.m. that concludes the entire series. Von Adler writes, contract renewed, 26 more weeks, different locations, higher budget. Amédée, without a single protest, without even trying to negotiate for wine, simply replies, accepted, send itinerary. And von Adler finishes it with a simple, good. That perfectly illustrates the ultimate mystery of this entire explainer. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Is this just a punishment continuing, or is it a twisted collaboration beginning? Neither of them will ever admit they've become partners in this elaborate performance, but clearly neither can escape it. So who really won this bizarre, globe-trotting game of aquatic chess? Think about that and let it sink in. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Acqua Non Grata.